Hello everyone, welcome to Really Good Crochet. My name's Ali and today is part 2 in the introduction to crochet. We're going to be covering the double crochet today. That's using US stitch terminology. Although I'm based in the UK, if you are preferring to use UK stitch terminology, that's the treble crochet. Now, we will also be covering one method of how to make the granny square. I have two granny squares in front of you. We're going to look a little bit more closely at those later on, but just so that you can have a quick look at those now. You will be able to do these, I promise. This method uses is all front facing, so we don't do any turning at the end of each round. This one, the green one, we turn at the end of each round. And also, whilst this one is made from the corner, this one isn't made from the corner. But part 3 will look at more depth into other methods of making a granny square. I'm also going to be making some channel recommendations for you for granny square specialists, and we'll get to all of that as we go. Now, we'd like to take our time around here, so get your favourite brew, get comfortable, pull up, and let's get crocheting. So, we're going to learn how to make the double crochet first of all. We're going to use the cream yarn today for that. Let me just move. There we go. I've got a new phone stand coming, which will make my life a little easier when filming these things. The phone stand that I originally got is a gooseneck holder, and it's okay, but it doesn't have the flexibility that I need, and it also doesn't give me the space that I need to maneuver. But I should have been on Instagram a lot sooner than I was, because I found what I needed on Instagram. There we go. Let's just go through that slip knot making again. At the short end of your yarn, wrap it from front to back over your finger once, then twice. Leave a tail that you can pinch between your thumb and your second finger. You've got the front loop here. You've got the back loop here. You're going to take the back loop and pull it over the front loop. Then you're going to take the front loop and pull it all the way over your finger so that you create your slip knot, and then you can pop that onto your hook. Now I'm using a 4mm hook today. I've got some cream yarn from my stash, and we're going to make some chains. Now I'm going to make, I think probably 18 chains is enough. So yarn over from back to front of the hook, grab the yarn and pull through. From back to front, grab the yarn and pull through. Back to front, grab the yarn and pull through. So that's 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. There we go. Now, we never count the chain that's on the hook. We only count the fully formed chains hanging down from the hook. We're going to start by yarning over. So we're going to take our yarn and wrap it from back to front over our hook. And then we're going to pop our hook into the 4th chain from the hook. So count down 1, 2, 3, and 4. And into that 4th chain, let me just double check, 1, 2, 3, and 4. There we go, that one. Just working into the top, slip your hook into the top of the chain, grab the working yarn and pull up a loop. You will have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over your hook, pull through 2 loops. You will have 2 loops remaining on your hook. Yarn over your hook, grab the yarn and pull through both loops. Now the 3 chains that you skipped count as your first double crochet, and you now have your second double crochet made into your chain there. We're going to make our next double crochet. Yarn over the hook, slip your hook into the top of the chain, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over the hook, pull through 2 loops. You will have 2 loops left on your hook. Yarn over your hook, grab the working yarn, pull through 2 loops. You now have 3 double crochet, including your chain. Let's do that again. Yarn over your hook into the next chain, slip your hook in, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over the hook, grab the yarn, pull through 2 loops, yarn over the hook, pull through those last 2 loops. You will always be left with 1 loop on your hook. So let's keep doing that nice and slowly. Yarn over the hook, slip your hook in, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over the hook, pull through 2 loops, yarn over the hook, pull through 2 loops. Now do not feel that you need to keep up. Do not feel pressured to keep up in any way. If you need to pause and maybe redo your chain, go back over what we're doing and do so. If you need to slow me down in the settings, slow me down in the settings. There is no rush. We do this at your pace. Yarn over, slip the hook into the chain, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, preferably without splitting your yarn, yarn over, pull through 2. If you ever do find that your yarn is a little bit splitty, then a little tip for you is to make sure that your hands are well moisturized, and then just straighten the yarn out like that with your fingers. If your hands are clean and well moisturized, just do that with the working yarn if you're having problems with it being a little bit splitty. Sometimes with yarn that's a little bit more splitty, holding it at a slightly tighter tension can help as well. Okay, next chain. Yarn over the hook, slide your hook into the chain. Oh, I'm going to do that again. Yarn over the hook, slide your hook in under all of the top of that chain there, that's better. Grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now I'm just going to keep making double crochets fairly slowly down the end of that chain there. Now, if you're struggling a little bit with your tension, another little tip is to cut off about 5 or 6 inches, maybe not as much as that, about 4 or 5 inches of yarn, and wrap it around one finger and then the other finger, so that you then wrap it around each of your fingers one after the other. Doing so with more or less pressure. I'll show you that little exercise a little bit later on before we finish, and it helps you to feel where the yarn might be a little bit too tight to control, or might be a little bit too loose to control. Every yarn has a slightly different tension point, and if you're going between yarn types as well, very often it's suggested that you do a small sample piece to practice your tension. But one of the things that I always do is cut off a small length of yarn so that I can do that little exercise and feel the yarn between my fingers and find where it's going to be a good point to hold the tension, where it feels comfortable to hold the tension. Because especially when you're going between different types of yarn, like going between, say, acrylic and a pure wool blend, a pure wool yarn, they're going to feel very, very different. And it's a very good idea to do whatever helps to just feel the difference and to get your tension right. And I find that that's actually, for me, one of the best ways of not only making sure that my tension's right for whatever the work is that I'm doing, but it also helps to keep my tension flexible. So that if I want to make the tension on a project slightly looser, then I can. But if I want to make the tension on a project slightly tighter, then I can. Because one of the things I actually struggled with to start with was my tension was swinging from extremes, just going into that last chain there. It was either very, very, very loose or very, very, very tight, which is just very, very me. There we go. Now, we're going to count our double crochets. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, which is absolutely perfect. There we go. Now, like I said, don't feel like you have to rush to keep up. Pause, rewind, slow down. Don't start doing the second row of double crochet with me until you feel absolutely ready to do so. We do this at your pace, not mine. Okay? So, when you're ready, we're going to start by chaining 2. Now, the standard chain to make for a row of double crochet is 3 as a rule of thumb. Some people prefer 2, some people prefer 3. I will do either 2 or 3 depending on the project. At the moment, whilst you're learning, I'm going to have you make 2 until you figure out where your tension is, figure out what your style is, and so that you feel as confident as possible whilst you're proceeding. I'm going to have you make just 2, and that's going to count as your first double crochet. And we're going to turn it this way from left to right. So you see those 2 chains there align with the stitch at the bottom, so that counts as your first double crochet. So when you're ready, yarn over the hook. We're going to make the double crochet into the second one there. So not this first one, the second one. That first one is now spoken for, so it's this second one here. We're going to make the stitch. You've got those little V's at the top there, and we're going to make the stitch under the 2 loops. Okay, so yarn over, pop your hook in under both of those 2 top loops there, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now you may eventually decide that you prefer to turn from right to left, which is absolutely fine. Most people do. Let me just show you the difference very quickly. I'm just going to do the third chain. Now if you turn from right, now I've slid off. Now if you turn from right to left, what happens is you get a slight twist there. And for a lot of people that's absolutely fine. For me personally, I much prefer not to have the twist. So I turn from left to right rather than from right to left. So chain 2, yarn over the hook. Now you've got your stitch already made for that one, so you're making your stitch into this one. Slide your hook under both loops, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Make double crochet into the next one. Under both loops, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, your hook goes in under both of those loops, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, Now lesson 3 will be a closer look at different methods of working a granny square. And then lesson 4 will be a stitch tutorial, nice simple stitch tutorial with a little suggested project for you. And what I'm planning on, what I have planned, is some steps that should give you the basics in everything that you need so that you can feel as confident as possible and as I say, if you have any questions at all, then please let me know. I am also trying to sort out and figure out how I can make sure that these lessons can be made left-handed. I understand that there is a thing. Technical stuff isn't my strongest suit, but I am dealing with it. Because I don't want anybody to be left out. Well, we've got 2 stitches left because that chain counts as your first stitch. So put that stitch in there, and then I will show you about making your stitch into that last double crochet. Now, when it comes to making your stitch into the chain, my best advice is to wiggle your hook in somewhere near the top of the chain. Let me do that again. Because the bottom of the chain curves up from the bottom row, all you really need to aim for is somewhere near the top and wriggle your hook in. You don't have to be that precise, because honestly, it's not going to make that much difference. And when we come back down to the other end here, because we've only chained 2, we can make our last double crochet into the top of that chain 2 with confidence. And I will briefly discuss about making a double crochet into a chain 3 when we get there, but we'll do this one more row first. Okay, so chain 2 again, and we're turning from left to right. Yarn over the hook. This first stitch is already spoken for because that chain 2 counts as your first stitch. So you're going to be making your first stitch into this one here. So this one's made, it's this one that you're working into. So yarn over the hook, pop your hook in under both loops, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then we carry on down the row making our double crochet. Now I do not want you to worry about what the sides of your practice pieces look like right now. One of the other reasons I'm only asking you to chain 2 is so that you don't fret too much about that. At the moment, you are just practicing. You're finding where your tension is. You're learning the basic stitches. The sides of your work will get straighter as you go. There are no crochet police. Okay? One of the reasons why we're going to look at the granny square once you've got the double crochet down is because it's an excellent little first project, so that you don't worry about how straight your sides are, because working from side to side very often knocks a beginner's confidence if they are struggling to keep their sides straight. There are techniques that can be taught, and once you get your tension sorted out, these things will come. Yes, this means that you do need a little bit of patience. But it is worth it. And we're going to be exploring stitch tutorials and projects for side to side work that will help you to stay confident whilst you're learning. There are very simple stitches that create beautiful little projects that you can learn. And next year, I know next year's only like 3 weeks away at this stage, but next year I'm planning a crochet along, a cowl, going to be a blanket stitch sample, a stitch sampler blanket based on using the single crochet. So it will be very beginner friendly, because believe me, the single crochet is extremely versatile. Sometimes I think people miss just how versatile the single crochet is. Okay, so we now just have that chain 2 at the end there. So find the top of that chain 2 and make your double crochet into the top of that chain 2. And whilst you are learning And in the early stages of crochet, when you're practicing side to side, using just a chain 2 at the side is something that is going to help you stay as confident as possible. Okay? Because it really does make a difference. When there's a chain 3, what I will do is I will actually work into the second chain, because I feel like it keeps that straighter. So even if I'm using a chain 3, I will work the final double crochet into the second chain, just because I feel like it keeps it straighter. There are always little tips and tricks that you can do and we will learn those as we go. So once you feel you've got the double crochet down, we can make a granny square. But first of all, I'm going to show you that little trick to help with your tension. Take a length of yarn, wrap it over these 2 fingers first, and then these 2 fingers, and then you're going to alternate. And then you can feel where the tension is softer and where the tension is tighter. You can practice. You might find it doesn't matter which finger, incidentally, that you hold your tension with, because that's not important. What's important is that you're feeling the tension of the yarn. So if you do it with just the forefinger, for example, you're using your forefinger for your tension, you can just wrap the yarn and unwrap the yarn around your fingers like that, and increase the tension and decrease the tension. And it just, especially when you're changing over types of yarn, say moving from acrylic to cotton or from acrylic to pure wool, it really does help you feel the difference in the yarn and find the tension in the yarn much more quickly. And if you do struggle with tension that's perhaps too tight or too loose, this is a really simple little exercise that you can do that helps you to figure out your tension. And it's something that you can do whilst you're watching demonstrations. It's something that you can do whilst you're listening to music. It's just a little exercise that you can do from time to time. And I've always found it really helpful, and it's helped to give me very flexible tension. Right, let's have a look at these 2 granny squares again. Where are we? There we go. Okay, now these 2 granny squares. This one was worked from the front, no turning at the end of each round. It was also worked from the corner, which is something I'll explain as we go. and then this one was turned at the end of each round, and it was worked it wasn't worked from the corner. So you'll see that that's why that's there rather than that one there. They're both, however, they're both seamless, so it's learning how to make your granny square seamless isn't difficult. We're going to focus on this granny square today because it's the basic classic granny square method. And then we will look at other methods tomorrow. So we'll look at this method tomorrow. We can also then start looking at things like corner to corner. But for now, we're going to look at the classic granny square, which is worked from the front. One of the reasons why it's very slightly larger than the other granny square is because when you're working the granny square front facing and without turning, you have to make a chain between each shell, each granny shell, because that stops the square from going wonky. If you have a wonky granny square, it's almost certainly because you needed to make a chain between each shell and you didn't. That's when you're troubleshooting granny squares and you have a wonky granny square. If it's a granny square that you're working front facing and you have a wonky granny square, it's because you forgot to chain between each shell. I haven't blocked this. It's this square because it's this square. Yes, that comes with practice, but once you've got the basic technique down, it will flow. Okay, it's made now. I'll tell you what making it from the corner show you what making it from the corner looks like as we go, but making it from the corner also means that it's completely seamless. Unless I actually showed you that this along here is the seam is there, you would never know it. Once I'd woven in my ends, you would never know that that's the seam running along there. It's a very, very clean granny square. You can work any granny square can be worked more or less any granny square can be worked from the corner, and generally speaking, I will work most granny squares from the corner. Depending, there are a few that you either can't or it looks better if you don't. But generally speaking, I will work my granny squares from the corner because they give a very clean, seamless presentation. So let's get on with that. Now, the first thing that you need to make, I've just got some red DK from my stash. So there we go. Let me just get that out of the way. Now, the first thing that you need to make is a ring to make the stitches into. Now, I'm not going to show you a magic ring today, but I promise you a magic ring is not complicated. In fact, a magic ring is probably the most overthought part of crochet. If you know how to do a slip stitch, you know how to do a magic ring. It's not difficult, but for today I'm going to show you how to make a chain ring, and that's a very classic method of starting a granny square. So let's start by making a slip stitch to go onto the hook, and I'm going to use my pony for this one. And you're going to make a chain of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, into that bottom chain, you're going to slide your hook in like that. Grab the working yarn and then slip stitch straight through. Let me show you that again. So you've got your chain of 5. This bottom chain right here, you're going to slip your hook in. Doesn't matter if it's through the top 2 loops or just the top loop. I generally speaking do the top 2 loops. It's absolutely fine as long as you're catching at least 1 loop. Grab the working yarn and then slip stitch straight through your loop there, and then pull that apart, and you have a little ring, and you're going to work your stitches into that ring there, and you're going to work over the tail as we go. But you're going to start by making a chain of 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, okay. Now, that chain 4 counts as 2 chains for your last double crochet and 2 chains for your corner. I will show you what that means as we go. Yarn over the hook. We're going to make 3 double crochet into that ring, and we're going to work over that tail as we go. So into that ring, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over the hook, pull through 2 loops, yarn over the hook, pull through 2 loops. I'm going to make 2 more, yarn over, go into the ring, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over the hook, pull through 2 loops, yarn over the hook, pull through 2 loops, and another one. Yarn over the hook, into the loop, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over the hook, pull through 2 loops, yarn over the hook, pull through 2 loops, and now chain 2, 1, 2. So what you've just made is that first shell. We're in the center, and you've made that first shell right there. You've made one part of the corner and the chain 2 for the corner and the first shell. So you chain 2, and now you're going to make another granny shell, which is 3 double crochet. So yarn over the hook, go into the ring, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over the hook, pull through 2 loops, yarn over the hook, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and one more, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's your second shell for the center made. Chain 2, now we need a third shell, so 3 more double crochet, that's 1, that's 2, and there's the third one. And chain 2 again. So you've made this shell, this corner, this shell, this corner, this shell, and this corner. So now you have to finish this shell because you've already got the last stitch and you've already made the 2 chains for the corner. So you've got 2 chains for the corner, 2 chains for the last stitch, sorry, and 2 chains for the corner. So you only need 2 more double crochet in there to complete the shell. So that's 1, and that's 2. So there's your 2 double crochet. Now you're going to make a slip stitch through the 3rd chain up from the bottom, so that's 1, 2, 3, or the 2nd chain from the top, doesn't matter. So slide your hook in, grab the working yarn, then pull straight through your loop, and then put your hook into the space, grab the working yarn, and make another slip stitch. Now you're going to be looking at this at the moment thinking, yikes, that doesn't look like the centre of a granny square to me. So first of all, take that cut end of yarn and give it a pull, because that's going to close things up. There we go. Give it a good pull. That's it. Now, round 2. Start with a chain of 4. That's 2 double crochet, 2 chains for your last double crochet, and 2 chains for your corner. And then straight back into that same chain 2 space, you're going to make 3 double crochet. So 1, 2, 3. And what we're doing now is we're making these corners here of the 2nd round. So you've made the last stitch, the corner chain, and the shell there. Chain 1. Now into this next chain 2 space here, make 3 more double crochet. One, 2, 3. Then chain 2, 1, 2. Let's pull that down slightly, and then back into this same chain 2 space, you're going to make 3 more double crochet. So that's 1, 2, 3. So now you have a new corner made. Once you've made that new corner, chain 1. Now, into that next chain 2 space, you're going to make another new corner. So that's 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. One, 2, 3, chain 2, pull that down a bit, and then 3 more double crochet into that same space. One, 2, 3. Once you've completed that new corner, chain 1, and into the next chain 2 space, you're going to make another new corner. So that's 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. Bear with me. Dog happened. There we go. That's better. So into there. Now remember, you can slow me down, you can pause, you can rewind, you take this at your pace. Alternately, if you're thinking, she's going far too slow for me, you can also speed me up in the settings. But as it says in the description of the channel, we like to take things slow around here. We like to take our time. There's 3 double crochet, chain 2, yarn over, 3 more double crochet. 1, 2, 3. Now once you've completed that corner, chain 1. Now you need to finish this corner here. You already have your last double crochet made because that's your chain 2 there. So you'd only need 2 more double crochet to finish this corner. So you're going to make 2 double crochet into the space here, 1, that's this space here, and 2, and then you're going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain up from the bottom, or the 2nd chain from the top, whichever you prefer. It's both the same chain, so it's fine. So slide your hook in, grab the working yarn and pull straight through, and then pop your hook into the chain 2 space that you've created, grab the working yarn and slip stitch through the loop again, and that just keeps your seam secure and straight. Now it might be that eventually with your tension you'll prefer to just slip stitch straight into the chain space, but that's something that comes with time and practice and knowing what your style of crochet is. Okay, so round 3, chain 4, and again you're going to make 3 double crochet straight back into this corner here, and that's how you would start every round of this style of granny square. So that's 1, 2, and 3. When you've made your shell, chain 1. Now into this chain 1 space here, right here in between these 2 shells, you're going to make a granny shell. So along the side of your granny here, make 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3. When you've done that, chain 1. Now you've arrived at your corner, and here in your corner you're going to make a new corner, and your corner is always going to be 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. One, 2, 3, chain 2, 3 more double crochet, 1, 2 and 3. Okay, chain 1. Now here along the side again, we're going to make another shell right there in the chain 1 space. Bear with me just a moment because my dog is getting fussy. Nicely. There we go. She's a rescue. And we lost my dad during the summer, and she hasn't really gotten over that yet. Mind you, I don't think I've really gotten over that yet either, so. Okay. Into that chain 1 space, 3 more double crochet. 1, 2, 3. You can probably hear the sound of her loudly munching biscuits, or as I like to call it, the sound of bribery and corruption. Now, chain 1 after you've completed that shell, and then you've arrived at your corner, and you're going to make your new corner. And that's always going to be 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, chain 2, switch that round, and back into that corner, 3 more double crochet. Now once you've completed that corner, chain 1, and you're going to make a shell along the side there into that chain 1 space. Once you've completed that shell, chain 1, and then you're at your next corner, so you make a new corner, which is 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. You just work some yarn out. So, once you've completed that corner, chain 1 again, and make another shell into the next chain 1 space. And when we refer to a shell in crochet, a shell is always 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 stitches made into the same space or stitch. Sometimes it's as much as 10 or 11. It's not normally more than about 9 though. Once you've completed that shell, chain 1, and then you just need to complete that corner. You've got your last double crochet already made. You just need to put 2 more double crochet into that space there. So 1, and then 2, and then slip stitch into the 3rd chain up from the bottom, or the 2nd chain along from the top. Oh, hang on a minute. That's it. And then slip stitch into the chain space. And then you have 3 rounds of your granny square made. And that 3rd row is essentially your repeating row. That's the row that you're going to repeat for as many rounds as you want until the square is as big as you want it to be. I'm going to make 1 more round. One, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that would certainly explain. There we go. That's it. You've got your chain of 4. You make 3 double crochet straight back into that corner. Then chain 1, and then you're going to make a shell, 3 double crochet into that next chain 1 space there. Then chain 1, and you're going to make another shell into that next chain 1 space there. Then chain 1, and then you're in your corner. So you're going to make a new corner, which is always 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. Once you've made your corner, chain 1 into the next chain 1 space, make a shell, then chain 1, and into the next chain 1 space, make a shell, then chain 1, and then you're back in a corner, so you're making a new corner, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, Once you've completed your corner, chain 1, into the next chain 1 space, make a shell, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, into the next chain 1 space, make another shell, 1, 2, oh sorry, rushing ahead there. Once you've completed that shell, chain 1, which I didn't do, I missed, I apologise, and then into your corner, make a new corner, which is 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, then when you've completed your corner, chain 1, and into the next chain 1 space, make another shell, then chain 1, into the next chain 1 space, make another shell, and when you've completed that shell, chain 1 again, and then you've got your final corner, you make 2 more double crochet, slip stitch into the 3rd chain up from the bottom, and slip stitch into the chain space. Take your time, practice, pause, rewind. Do not feel rushed. This is done at your pace, not mine. If you have any questions at all, pop them in the comment section down below and I'll answer them as quickly as I possibly can. In the meantime, I look forward to seeing you again in the next lesson or the next tutorial. Take care. Bye bye.